it's not designed to hold the
We're about to
snow.
roll call.
Right.
And so
Okay.
that's the challenge.
And-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They would like to come in and tell the public also about, what the church is doing.
Good evening, good folks, and welcome to the City of Muskegon City Commission work session for this Monday, July 8th, 2024. May we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Gorman? Absent. Commissioner Cochin?
Here.
Vice Mayor St. Clair?
Here.
Mayor Johnson?
Here.
Hilgo?
Here.
Commissioner Keener? Absent. Commissioner German?
Here.
Thank you. We have quorum. First up on our new business is preliminary report on internal policy audit and employee survey. We have our Deputy City Manager, Lan Mikesell, presenting and reporting out on this. Welcome.
Thank you. It's nice to see you all. I'm actually not going to present. I am just going to introduce our consultant to you. As you recall, back in January, you authorized us to hire MGT to look at our internal policies and to conduct an all-employee survey. And so now we were nearing the end of that phase of this project. And so we have some preliminary findings that we're going to report to you. So our consultant is in Florida, and he will be joining us via Zoom. So please cross your fingers and send all the positive vibes that this goes well technologically. So I am really here just to introduce the topic and to introduce Juan Osuna from MGT, who will be sharing with you the results.
Excellent. Thank you. Welcome. I think you might be muted. No? At least the volume might need to be turned up.
Change my audio settings. Is this better or?
There we go. We can hear you now.
Okay, maybe I just need to speak a little bit louder. Apologies for that. Hello everyone. Welcome. I am going to go ahead and share my screen in a second, and we'll start off with introductions, jump into some context, and certainly provide an update on the preliminary findings of the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Assessment in the city of Muskegon. And I'm getting a message. Is this the host disabled participant screen sharing?
The top one, yeah. Yeah, right there.
Thank you.
You want to tell him that he can try again, Mr. Mayor?
What's that?
Tell him he can try it now.
Oh, did you authorize it? Okay. You can try the sharing your screen again, sir.
Sure. Give me 1 second here. I think we're set.
Excellent. All right, we can
All right,
see
perfect. Perfect. And you can all see the screen well, right?
it. Yep.
All right, perfect. Let's go ahead and jump into the presentation. Again, thank you everyone for providing us the opportunity and the time to provide you some updates on this exciting assessment that the City of Muskegon has undertaken. The presentation and some of the findings you'll be sharing here this afternoon are all in the preliminary stages, meaning that it's only some of the findings, not all of the findings, and that we'll really be speaking in general, sort of broad strokes as findings. The longer and more detailed findings, along with recommendations, will come in phase 2 at a future time. I wanted to start off just talking a little bit about MGT. I won't share all of the information, or I won't talk through all of the information that's here on the slide. This is just to offer you a little bit of context of who we are as an organization and the incredible work that we have done in the past with other cities, counties, states, as well as other public-facing and public entities as well. At the bottom, you'll see a couple of the organizations that we have partnered with in the past. Again, just to give you a little bit of flavor of the type of experience we have as an organization. And then do want to put some names to faces. This is, of course, the wonderful team that has been working with the project team at the city of Muskegon. I'll start off with myself. My name is Juan Osuna. I am a senior consultant and also serve as the project manager for this DEI assessment. I come to you with over 10 years of experience in the diversity, equity, and inclusion space, specifically in the assessment and strategy space. I like to describe the work as helping organizations identify where they are on that journey and helping them get to that next step in that journey, whatever that may look like. And I've had a lot of experience in the nonprofits, private sector, as well as the public sector through my work with MGT at the city and county level. With that said, I do want to pass the mic to my wonderful colleague, Jamie, to share a little bit more about herself and introduce herself to you all.
Trying to find the unmute button. All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Jamie. I am a consultant on the DE&I team. I'm actually based here in Michigan, over in Berkeley. So, Michigan native. I come to you with 5 years of experience in DE&I and then a background in program evaluation and macro level social work from U of M. And actually have family in Muskegon, Michigan. So excited to be on this project team. So I've done a lot of the work behind the scenes in terms of the analysis and some of the policy work, and just really excited to be here with you to present some of the findings.
Great. And the folks here on the screen are, of course, some of the other key members who unfortunately were not able to join us today. In terms of the overall update and sort of where we are with the project, essentially this project as a whole will consist of essentially a two-part phase approach. This is, we're coming to a close of what we consider phase one, which is the first part of the organizational assessment of the city of Muskegon. As part of this assessment, we conducted a number of activities. One was an analysis of internal policies and documents from a diversity, equity, inclusion perspective. It was sort of broad strokes assessment. We targeted certain policies as well as documents, because we understand that as an organization, not all work is tied directly to a particular policy. Sometimes processes or procedures are written down or memorialized in some sort of Word document or PDF or presentation, but they still help dictate how certain processes are carried out within the organization. And the other large activity that we completed was we launched a staff survey that was an opportunity to give staff a voice into what is going well and what are some areas of improvement when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion at the city of Muskegon. Phase two will essentially start in July. We're hoping to start kick off that second phase soon, and that phase will also consist of a policy and document analysis. However, that analysis will be focused just on external policies. So for this phase, we focus on internal documents and policies that really mainly impact staff and how work gets carried out, may regard some benefits and compensation and all those different activities. And then phase two, we'll do a similar assessment, but again, focusing on more resident and public facing documentation that also dictates essentially how the city carries its work out with its residents. And then the phase two will also include the development of a full findings and recommendations report. So again, these are just preliminary findings. The report will be much more extensive. It'll include areas of strength and opportunity for the city of Muskegon. It'll also include our set of recommendations, taking into account the findings of our assessment process. Okay, so wanted to talk about a little bit about the policy analysis. As I mentioned, this slide here essentially paints in broad strokes not just the documents that were reviewed in this internal policy analysis. You'll see at the bottom in those bullets the various documents and policies that our team reviewed. And again, at the highest level possible, we wanted to talk about some of the key strengths that we've identified, at least in this initial review of documents and policies. Wanted to highlight just the clarity in the language and the way some of these policies are documented. Documents are laid out, specifically when it comes to scope and application of certain policies as well as documents. We also found that there was a great variety in the topics covered in some of the policies that is not often seen in some of the other organizations that we've worked with before, and when conducting these policy documents. And we do appreciate and want to highlight the flexible structure when it comes to the uniform sick leave, the return to work. Again, policies are the way that they're currently written, and the strengths that they carry are essentially in the way that they really tailor to specific departments and sometimes specific roles. In terms of some key considerations or things for the city to think about as they go through a process of perhaps updating some of these policies or documents, wanted to make sure to ask oneself, do these policies really serve the city to its maximum capacity or to the best degree? The extent to which these policies are available in other languages as needed. As well as how often these policies are reviewed. Is it yearly, bi-yearly, maybe every 5 years? Also, whether or not the extent to which the city is embodying these policies, meaning that we are consistent with the application and the way that they're carried out. And in the next slide here, as you could tell from the last slide, there are many documents that we reviewed, and this slide here is just a sample of what the final deliverable will look like. So when we do end up with the final product, meaning the full findings and recommendations report, you'll see a table very similar to this one. This is just an example so that you can look at the different analyses and recommendations as well as areas of strength that we identify for each of the different documents and policies that reviewed. So the table and the full report will again list all of the different documents. It'll outline the strengths as well as some areas of opportunities, meaning what are some potential changes that could be made to strengthen either this policy or the document, as well as any questions for reflection, not necessarily to be answered, but also in solving or answering for some of these questions, the city may find itself that it may even create some further adjustments or enhancements as we look through the different documents and policies. Again, this is just a sample. Wanted to give you a sense of the level of detail that would be contained in the final findings and recommendations report that is forthcoming. With that said, I want to go ahead and pass the mic over to my colleague, Jamie, who will talk a little bit more about the survey process. I'll go ahead. Take it away, Jamie.
So for the staff engagement, we offered a DEI survey to better understand your employees' perceptions, feelings on diversity, equity, inclusion within the city. So we opened up that survey for about 2 weeks, beginning at the end of April all the way through mid-May via a system called Qualtrics. And this was administered to all staff at the city, whether they be part-time, full-time. We offered 52 questions, including demographic information, with 3 open-ended questions where folks could write in their own feedback. And so based on all of that information, we had 154 employees participate, which ended up being a confidence level of 95%, with that margin of error being 5.3%. So we'll dig a little bit more into that on the next slide and talk about the different survey categories. So the different survey categories stacked up into leadership readiness, racial equity, which are kind of the specific City of Muskegon questions that the project team and MGT crafted together. Diversity and representation, inclusion and belonging, equity and access, conflict resolution, hiring and recruitment, and then professional development. So to the right there in the gray, you'll find a quick description and then the number of statements that are associated with those statements. And then we're going to dig a little bit into the demographic information. So first up on your screen, these are so this is one survey category that we only collected via survey information. The City of Muskegon did not provide age demographics to us in their EEO report. So if you look at this little donut chart, you'll notice that the most prevalent group there are folks who preferred not to disclose their age, followed closely at 27.92% of people who identified their ages 39 to 54, so kind of that mid-range. Next up being the younger population of 18 to 38, and then kind of that upper end being 55 to 73, and that dark gray on the bottom left. And so related to sexual orientation, so again, a category that was not shared with the EEO survey or the EEO data from the city, you'll notice that 66.23% of individuals identified their sexual orientation as heterosexual or straight. 26.62 preferred that they did not want to disclose, and then 7.14% into that LGBTQIA plus population. And then on the next two slides, so this is a comparison of survey respondents on the top, and then that second bar chart is the City of Muskegon EEO data as of June 30th in this year. So that ended up being out of the 375 employees that were listed in that EEO report compared to the 154 of the survey respondents. And so we just wanted to also make that note that in the EEO data, there was no option for individuals to prefer not to disclose their race. So because we had low response rate in individual race categories, we did lump that into Black, Indigenous, or a person of color in that teal. And then in that purple, folks who identified their race as white, and then in the gray, people who preferred not to disclose. So you'll notice that if you look in a comparative way, you'll notice that there are less people of color who participated in the survey by percentage than the workforce data shows, knowing that some of those people could be represented in that 31.82%. And then again, you'll notice a lower response rate here of that 58.44 response rate of people who identified as white compared to what the city has on file of 74.26 of their workforce identifying as white.
And then
You'll jump in? Great.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and jump in, and then very, very similar. Again, we were able to do a very quick comparison of what does our sample survey respondents look like compared to the existing EEO data from the City of Muskegon. So here we see that when we compare the responses in our sample compared to the organization, we found that here on the outside is essentially the EL data as of June 30th, 2024. 39.29% of the population identified as male, but within our survey sample, we found that they represented 49.35%. Within the survey. And then when we looked at the female demographic, or women, based on EEO data, they represent 60% the workforce, the City of Muskegon, but within our survey sample, they represented 25% of survey respondents. And then, of course, within our survey, respondents had the opportunity or the choice not to disclose any type of demographic information. With regards to gender, we see that only 25% of the survey respondents chose not to disclose their gender identity. Again, you can continue to see some bit of proportionality when it comes to the organization compared to the sample of our survey. Okay, with that being said, I want to share, at the highest level possible, some of the outcomes of the survey respondents. The chart here that you see in front of you shows the average responses by each of the different survey categories that Jamie walked through earlier in the presentation. We have leadership readiness, inclusion, belonging, racial equity, and so on and so forth. So the boxes here in teal and the percentages represent the average favorable responses, meaning that these scores are calculated based on the number of respondents that either agreed or strongly agreed with some of the statements within the survey instrument. And here, when we look at the averages for each of the different categories, we find that inclusion and belonging is the category that was rated most highly by the survey respondents. But we look at conflict resolution and equity and access as some of the categories within the survey that were scored much lower than some of the others, meaning that respondents either were more likely to either respond neutrally or to agree or strongly disagree with with some of the particular statements within each of those categories. As you can imagine, there are many more statements within each of the different categories, so we wanted to offer you this visual as to get a sort of general view of the overall survey results, but do want to offer an opportunity to disaggregate some of this data. So here you see the inclusion and belonging scale. So as you can, if we go back to this previous slide, the slide where we saw the highest average percentage results, here we disaggregate and drill down this particular scale within the survey. The left-hand side shows all of the different statements that make up this specific inclusion and belonging scale within the survey. And then, of course, on the right-hand side in the percentages in the teal, this shows the total aggregate favorable responses for these statements. So when we look at inclusion and belonging, I'll highlight very quickly that these statements that was most highly favorable for survey respondents under this scale was that employees generally respect each other. So certainly that is great news to hear from the survey respondents, and as well as all parts of my identity and background that I present at work are accepted. So I wanted to highlight those two most favorable statements in the scale, and some of the ones that were least favorable are my coworkers openly share their challenges, as well as when challenges are shared, employees receive support and guidance from others. So certainly already starting to identify some areas of opportunity. And the next scale that we wanted to show you all is the conflict resolution. Again, if I go back a couple slides, we wanted to show you the rollout of the different statements and the scale that was had the lowest average favorable responses. So within conflict resolution, again, we see all of the different statements that make up this scale. The statement that is rated most highly is this one here in the middle. I'm aware and understand the procedure for reporting incidents of discrimination and or bias in the workplace. So from the survey respondents, again, this is total aggregate favorable responses. So survey responses are telling us that essentially, yes, they are aware and they understand the procedure for reporting these incidents. However, there are certainly some areas of opportunity within the scale, some that will that come to mind just based on the results include whether formal complaints and conflicts are effectively resolved, and employees can openly share their opinions without fear of reprisal. So here we see 48 and 44% of survey respondents agreeing to the statement, meaning that there is a larger number of survey respondents that either felt sort of came down in the middle or either disagreed or strongly disagreed with this statement. As I said, this was just a taste of some of the information that came out of the survey. When we developed the full findings and recommendations reports, you'll all have the opportunity to not just see some of these survey responses and results in the aggregate, but you'll also be seeing the survey responses disaggregated by particular identity markers, whether it be including gender, sexual orientation, even as well as race, ethnicity, including department. Our processes that we try to offer as many disaggregated cut to the data as possible, while also trying to veer away from disaggregating the data too much, where we might be compromising the identity of some of these survey respondents. In terms of next steps, the existing project team is working to finalize the contract for phase 2 of this assessment process. As I mentioned earlier, in phase 2, the assessment, you'll include a number of activities that include the assessment of policies and documents from an external perspective. You'll also see the full development of the findings and recommendations report, along with a full presentation of those findings and recommendations that will include a more detailed analysis of the survey data, specific recommendations, and suggestions to edits to some of the internal documents and policies that the team has reviewed, and then as well as recommendations for the city of Muskegon based on the data that's collected. And then as part of that phase 2 and some point in the future, we also anticipate that MGT will have an opportunity to facilitate some focus groups with staff to get a sense of whether they've seen or experienced any changes since we last collected feedback, which in this case will be around the time frame when we complete the this phase 2 work. With that said, I want to thank you all for your time and want to open it up to any questions, comments.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Juan and Jamie. Really appreciate you joining us this evening and presenting that. Moreover, really appreciate your work in the process and updating us on the progress and the next steps. It's a very important initiative that we're undertaking, and it was nice to see where we're at so far in the process and see what's to come with the external policy evaluation, as well as the recommendations for both the internal and external policy. So thank you. I'm going to open up to the City Commission if you have any questions or comments to share. Commissioner Cochin.
Thank you so much, Juan and Jamie, for joining us tonight and working so diligently on this data. I wanted to first say that I was very happy to see that you guys had made a suggestion that the mission or the vision, value, mission, equity statement would be recommended for promoting values publicly for feedback. I think that's important, and so I really appreciate you making that recommendation, as well as including the chronically ill workers in your considerations. There were some statistics that I was a little concerned by, and I know it's aggregate data, but I'm a little concerned to see that employees don't feel like they can openly share their opinions without reprisal, and that the city doesn't take appropriate actions in regards to, I think it was racial matters. It was slide 16. Given those numbers, you had talked about having a feedback session with individuals, and not necessarily like everybody, but some individuals. How do you plan on tackling that when the data is showing that the employees don't feel like they can openly share their opinions?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, essentially, as part of the proposed path forward, once we've presented these findings, these recommendations, certainly we encourage the team to also share these findings, these recommendations with staff in a number of ways to begin socializing not just the work that has been done so far, but as well as some of the recommendations and perhaps even some next steps that the city plans to leverage moving forward. From there, we anticipated that there would be essentially a sort of pause, so to speak, to allow some time from some of these changes or whatever activities the city wants to move forward or implement to take place. Then we would come in and host these focus group sessions. To your original question, how are we going to create that space for staff to, feel comfortable to speak up and speak their mind? First and foremost, certainly this survey is an exercise in doing that. Although some folks did not disclose, for example, part of their demographic information, they did share feedback, not just in the responses that they provided, but as well as some of the open comment sections. And some of those comments and questions really carry the whole gamut. There's folks that are saying, this work is important, it's great, glad that the city's behind it, excited to see more. Folks that are, somewhere in the middle that may be a bit cynical about this work or have doubts that this work will carry forward. And then, of course, you have some folks that, for whatever reason, haven't had a positive experience as an employee, as well as some folks that may have some questions about this work. A lot of public entities, and there is healthy discussion, at least from our experience, around, is this work important, and making those connections to mission, vision, values, and how this work really stands as a lever to move this work forward. So that is, we're already collecting that information anonymously. In terms of the purpose of the focus group, they'll be facilitated by ourselves, by the MGT team. More often than not, in our experience, we found that speaking to those third-party individuals, folks outside of the typical reporting structures in the city, really give credence that this feedback is is anonymous, and we certainly go to great lengths to lay sort of communal rules in these focus groups to allow folks to share their feedback and their comments freely and openly without fear of reprisal, and with the understanding that no comment that they share will be directly attributed to any one individual. So that is the different ways that we have collected feedback anonymously and try to hear back from people, and then forward-looking how we plan to really try to identify particular groups of individuals or departments who, for whatever reason, feel like they haven't been heard in the past, trying to organize focus groups or even stakeholder interviews, if possible, to ensure that we're lifting up all voices.
Thank you, Juan.
Thank you, Commissioner Cochin. That was a great question. Commissioner German.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Juan and Jamie, for your work. Thank you for being here tonight. Almost to Commissioner Cochin's question, but under the conflict resolution, when we talk about formal complaints and conflicts, which we know happen sometimes and more than often in work settings, I find it on your study is what, 48%, and I guess my question would be, why is that so low? Did the applicants? What would your analysis be to that? I would ask for that actual item being as low as it is. Under 50%.
It was a little bit hard to hear your question, Commissioner, but keep me honest here. Your question essentially is, to maybe comment on why the 48% on the survey respondents that feel that they couldn't share that
Under the formal
reporting?
complaints and conflicts are effectively resolved. I'm being under 40% because there should be some type of resolution where employees and staff come to some type of resolution, and I find that being very low.
Yeah, I see what you mean, and I'll go ahead and answer it very simply, and I'll give my colleague Jamie the opportunity to chime in as well. Really, we see it in both ways. So as we go back to the scale, and I'll actually go back to the scale real quickly on conflict resolution. So you might have noticed that people are aware of the procedures and the procedures exist. This is really speaks to the formal procedure, the statement itself. And then I think, from a procedural perspective, you're right. People may feel that they could, some incidents may arise to the level of being formal complaints and going through a specific process. When we look at this piece, formal complaints and conflicts are effectively resolved. More often than not, we see this manifest in two ways. One is in some ways, in some organizations, this process, given the nature of the formal process, there might be information that is disclosed to everybody. For obvious reasons, whether it be sensitivity to the persons involved in the process and sort of respecting and honoring that process in and of itself. I think more often than not, we see that folks really don't have purview or communications, or have heard examples or seen examples of how this process actually plays out. So essentially what we see here is a number of folks either thinking that when they raise a concern to a manager or their manager's manager, that somehow escalates, or that could be considered a formal complaint. And yes, that sometimes is considered a formal complaint, but then there's another process, sometimes that's documented, that goes more directly through the EEO process. So what we see here playing out is that there are formal elements in place, but then there are other complaints that perhaps aren't as serious, or perhaps don't raise to the level of explicit discrimination based on any number of identities. Sometimes it's just a complaint or bias that a manager may have with a direct report. More often than not, organizations don't have type of formal structures or training for folks to address some of those specific conflicts that, again, perhaps don't rise to that level where they do need to be elevated and investigated. And more often than not, sometimes people use some of this formal process to address issues that, again, don't escalate, but perhaps could have been better resolved had there been some type of mediation in place, or a people manager really having the proper training and competencies to be able to address those conflicts and do it in a healthy manner. So that is more often than not the scenario that we see play out, that kind of explains these sort of disparities within the survey responses. But I'll let Jamie chime in as well.
Thank you.
The other thing I would add here is the data that we are looking at on the screen is at an aggregate. So that's all employees at an average is 48.05% for that one statement. And then in our final report that you'll see, and in the preliminary findings, like full report, we have broken that out by different demographics. And so, to answer your question, I don't know that we have a full answer for it explicitly, but there's a lot to look into based on whether this is more prevalent in particular demographics, or meaning like, are people of color agreeing with this statement less than their white counterparts? Are we noticing that many people who prefer not to disclose this disclose their race, their gender, their department, have a low level of favorability? We can also provide in your final report if there's a particular like cross-cut of demographics that you're interested in seeing to dig deeper. If it's like specifically, one department ages 18 to 22 that has a super low level favorability, that gives you an insight on where to spend some time and ask further questions, whether that be through focus grouping or all team meetings or all hands meetings. This can give you a lot of that starting point to dive deeper into what you're seeing in the data and really like uncover those root causes. Like at a high level, you're seeing people's level of agreeability, and then you ask yourself why, and then you can really ultimately get to that end solution that can help increase that level of favorability.
Okay, thank you. And that was one of the questions I was going to ask next when we talk about the demographics. Some may feel comfortable, some may feel retribution. Now, going back, this is one of the reasons why, as a commissioner, I pushed to implement our EEOC committee to be resurrected here at the city years ago, because at that time it wasn't that things wasn't happening, it to have a mechanism in place when it happens. So I think for the most part of it, as much information that you guys can provide us would be very beneficial to the city, and so we have our employees feeling that they have a sense of belonging, and things are done equitably. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner German. Any other questions or comments? Vice Mayor St. Clair.
Thanks. So I'm not sure if this question is for the consultants or the deputy city manager, but my understanding is that this is wrapping up the initial assessment phase. We're collecting data, we're inspecting the body to see where the ailments are. What's next steps?
You're correct. There is still some more data gathering to do, because the consultants do need to review our external policies. And so that will happen over the next fiscal year, and then the following fiscal year, they will be working on these focus groups where they'll talk directly with staff. So there is a lot more information to be gathered. This is really just a preliminary review of what we've got so far. And you may recall, I don't remember what year it was that we did it, but shortly after we joined Ottawa County in this endeavor with GARE, we did do an all-employee survey to understand how people feel. And so we were deliberate in this survey of including some of the same questions so that we could start also looking at, is there a trend, any direction? And so the GARE core team that we have here will also be talking about future surveys. Do we do this annually? Do we focus on a particular topic each year so that we're kind of spreading this out a little bit? I don't want to over survey people because I want them to actually respond and give us good information. So that's one of the things that we'll be working on. But we do intend to do some sort of survey on a regular basis so that we can keep understanding if we're going in the right direction or if we need to make more modifications.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Vice Mayor St. Clair. Any other questions or comments at this time? Commissioner Kilgo.
Thank you. This is probably for you, Deputy Manager. If 74% of the respondents say that they're aware and understand the procedures for reporting incidents, and we may be thinking about, like you just said, we may be thinking about interviewing or surveying different topics each year, to the conflict resolution, that other one that was really low. Do employees have employees can openly share their opinions without fear of reprisal? Do employees have alternate routes of filing a complaint? So if my direct manager or supervisor I just didn't feel comfortable reporting something to them. Are there alternate routes for our employees to get that information to someone higher or a different person?
Yeah, absolutely, because, sometimes you're in a situation where it's your supervisor that's, you have the complaint against. So, right now, people can go to their direct supervisor, they can go really to any manager. But I would probably first direct them either to Dewana or Melissa. So they know the process, and they know how to do the intake for those complaints, and capture the information that's pertinent. So that would be where I would direct people. But yeah, people have lots of different options. I don't want anybody to feel like they're alone in this.
Thank you.
Can you share who Dewana and Melissa are and their
Sure,
roles?
sorry. So Dewana Thompson is our EEO director, and Melissa Clark is our human resources analyst, I think is her title. But she's our go-to for HR stuff.
Thank
And
you.
now has a regular presence at City Hall.
Yes,
We
absolutely.
contract our HR through the county, but we've arranged for on-site presence.
It's right next door.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments at this time? All right. Well, this is very interesting to see the results of this. I'm really pleased that so much of our staff did complete this. It'd be great if we get to 100%, but I'm pleased that we got, I think maybe it was about approaching 2/3 of staff completed the survey. So that was really good to see the results of that. And there's some reassuring results too. It's great to see that inclusion and belonging as high as it is. We also would love to get that to 100%.
Yeah.
So there's opportunities for continued improvement in that regard. But it's great to see the extent to which our staff already are feeling included or belonging within our organization. That conflict resolution has been pointed out, and it does have points of concern and certainly areas for opportunity. I see, you just touched on it, can only share their opinions without fear of reprisal. That one is particularly disconcerting to me, that, we haven't broke a majority there, that a majority of our staff that completed the survey do not feel comfortable, or that there's a fear of reprisal. So we need to, as I'm sure you're mindful of, and our city manager is mindful of changing that culture, and ensuring that everybody feels comfortable and confident addressing their concerns without any kind of fear. The other one of those that stands out to me is I believe the city of Muskegon takes appropriate action in response to incidents of discrimination or bias. At 52%, so at least we broke a majority there, but still disconcertingly low in terms of people's perceptions of and confidence in our city's leadership team being able to respond to that and address that. Good to know that at least 3/4 of our staff do understand and are aware of the procedures for reporting incidents and discrimination. The formal complaints and conflicts. I do have one question about that. Is that any and all formal complaints and conflicts? Are those narrowed down to with a a racial or religious or demographic lens of some kind, or is that any and all formal complaints and conflicts?
Well,
That's
I mean, people are interpreting that as they're taking the survey, right? So if we didn't provide additional wording to explain that, then people are taking it as any number of those things. So to me, that's just another one of those areas that we need to drill down and see what people's concerns are. I'm looking forward to seeing the open-ended questions, the answers to those, to see if that gives us some more information as to where we need to do better.
Yeah, that would be enlightening.
Yeah.
The way I see the formal conflict, I guess it's concerning, but also I understand that when you have two people with a conflict and you get a resolution, there's a good chance that one of the two people may not feel great about that resolution, that maybe they felt that it was a little bit leaning more towards the other one. And so I can see that potentially yielding a higher proportion of people that don't feel that it was effectively resolved to their liking.
Right, and I feel like, we need to make sure that we're training our supervisors and managers so that, when we get to that point, maybe you're not very happy with the outcome, but you're feeling supported. So to me, you know, I'd at least want people to come away with that.
Yeah. Feel valued,
and some
validated,
understanding. And if they don't, then I think it's our job as supervisors and managers to continue talking with the employee to help them understand and ensure that they do.
I would
realize
just
there's
add here, related to the conflict resolution one, I know overall that's the lowest scoring in terms of all staff response on average. And to your points around some of these questions related to like, did we specify if it was particular discrimination or just general discrimination? I think those are ways in which the city could, if you do a next iteration of this question, you could say, you know, in 2024, we had only X, you know, X percent of people who agreed with this statement. We're trying to learn more. Can you tell us a little bit more about, and then you can disaggregate it by those different examples that you gave. It also, like, the one thing I'd say about survey data too is like there's so much nuance to it, right? Like these are really good questions that the city has crafted, and it probably also depends on when the person took the survey. Did they just have a conflict that was not resolved, or was resolved that like biased their response? The other thing being that this is just like a moment in time, and it gives you lots of things that you can work towards. Like I think survey data, often people think of it as like, okay, what can we improve? What can we improve? And then I really like how you all are thinking about leaning into the spaces in which things are going really well and how you can leverage like this really high percentage. This is really high, I think, across a lot of our clients. We don't see a 75% level of agreeability with inclusion and belonging that often. So, you know, what ways can the city leverage those relationships, those connections to foster a greater sense of positive, you know, positive attitudes around conflict resolution? Like, I think it's really exciting to see you all thinking about it in that way. So.
Thank you, Jamie. Commissioner.
Oh yeah. Just more of a comment. Deputy Manager Mike Zell, thanks for mentioning training, because that's the question I was going to ask. But I guess while this study was being done, has there been any push to train staff in diversity, equity, and inclusion prior to this?
Yes, thank you for asking that. We did include in the budget different levels of training for this coming fiscal year. Most of that is based on training that's offered by Ken James at MCC. We did meet with him to understand what they offer and how we could take advantage of that. And so we've set up a plan for doing that.
Okay. And it was a brief comment about the focus groups. Mm-hmm. Have we had any focus groups training? I mean, well, I should say, ask, has there been a focus group session within the city staff among you all so far?
I'm not entirely sure I know what you're asking. The focus groups that we've been referencing are to come. That's part of the MGT contract for the next fiscal year, where they will be meeting with some focus groups in the city to talk about these things. So that's what we meant when we were talking about it today. Now, I mean, I think you could kind of consider our GARE core team as a little bit of a focus group. And we meet regularly.
Oh, you say you do meet regularly. Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Thank you.
Can you share with us who all is on the GARE core team?
Got me on the spot. Well, the senior leadership on the team is Jake Ekholm, Donnie Nunez is our team leader, and Melissa Clark and Duana Thompson, along with me. We form the senior leadership there. Scott Zonabelt is on the team, Emily Morgenstern, Jennifer Nutter, Sam Poulos. That might be it.
Okay. Good cross section of
Yes,
various
that was the idea.
departments and leadership levels.
Oh, right, Jay Paulson's there.
And Jay Paulson. All right.
Yeah,
Public
I was
safety.
thinking we had another department head in there.
Excellent. Any final thoughts or questions, commissioners? No? All right. Well, thank you, Leanne.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Juan, and thank you, Jamie. Really appreciate the work that's been undertaken. and look forward to the next phase and ultimately the recommendations on improvements, both external and internal policies, and how we can continue to make our organization and our city better.
Yeah, and I really appreciate all of you having dedication to this so that we can continue the work.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, folks, for your time, and have a wonderful Monday evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Take
you.
care and be well.
Bye, everybody.
All right. Next up, we have community engagement process. Welcome. You care to introduce yourself, please?
I sure will. Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Deborah Sweet. I'm the Community Engagement Manager for the City of Muskegon. I'm gonna hook up my computer here. Hope that it works. Hey, awesome. So tonight I'm just going to be going over with you guys the city's community engagement handbook, or our internal process that our city staff have been using for about a year and a half to make our community engagement process extremely consistent, or aiming to make it extremely consistent. It's a large document. It's about 32 or 33 pages long, and there are a couple points or parts in here that I really want to hit home with you guys, and then just allow you to ask questions. The purpose of this is really just to make sure you guys are aware of our process, what we're doing, and see if you have any ideas or suggestions.
Excellent.
Awesome. Oh. Again, this document is more of an internal employee planning document, strategizing, implementing, really a process for internal staff to follow. A majority of this document in our process and all of our community engagement tools are based off of the International Association for Public Participation, which the City of Muskegon is a member of. I've gone to a couple of their trainings in person, and then I attend their regular monthly trainings as well. As you can tell, this is an international organization. It was founded in 1990 to provide public participation practitioners with the skills and tools they need to perform great public participation. So these things we did not just come up with out of the blue. These are based off of a lot of the IAP2's guidelines. So I'll note anything in here that specifically when we get to it, but a majority of it comes from them or other large public participation organizations throughout the globe. So the large document has 6 sections. The number 1 section that we're going to focus on today is the types of engagement in the public participation spectrum. So our number 1 community engagement goal is to create an environment of mutual respect and trust between local government and the community we serve, increase communication with our residents, workers, business owners, and visitors to inform, educate, and create opportunities for input. This is the public participation spectrum. So this is a framework, or it's a continuum, where the community becomes more involved the farther you go to the right. Not one of these levels is better or worse than the other one. Each level builds upon the level to the left of it. So if you are collaborating with somebody, you are also involving, consulting, and informing them. I'm a very snappy person, or not, that sounds bad, but to the point person. So I use the top 5 circles at the top the most when I'm thinking through our public participation process. But I will read through these a little more in depth so you guys are all on the same page. So number 1 is to inform the public. Our promise is to make sure that we are keeping the public informed. We do a lot of these things through our newsletters and our social media outlets and our Connect Muskegon pages, really just pushing out information on all of our projects. The next thing on here is to consult with the public. So our promise is that we will keep you informed, listen to and acknowledge concerns and aspirations, and provide feedback on how the public input influenced our decisions. The next one is involve. So this means we will work with you to ensure that your concerns and aspirations are directly reflected in the alternatives developed, and provide feedback on how the public input influenced the decision. The next step is to collaborate. This means we will look to you for advice and innovation in formulating solutions, and incorporate your advice and recommendations into the decisions to the maximum extent possible. And the last one here is to empower. This means we will implement what you decide. So you can see down there on the bottom, this is actually like a trademarked spectrum from the IAP2. They have thousands of organizations and government or entities around the world that are using this spectrum. This is pretty standard in the community engagement world. I did not tweak this for the city of Muskegon. This is like the public participation spectrum that many people use throughout the world. So I wanted to show you guys a couple of the things that we have done here in the city so you guys can see how we've utilized this spectrum. So, for example, if we have any upcoming election changes, we are informing the public. So we promise that we will keep you informed. The Beechwood Bluffton Neighborhood Association recently put in a fitness trail, and we empowered them. We implemented what they decided, and we supported them in different ways that we could, but we were there to guide them, let them do their thing. The next example is selecting playground equipment. So we consulted with our residents. We knew we needed playground equipment. We knew it was going in. We knew where it was going in, but we worked with them and we acknowledged that what they wanted, what colors they needed, etc. Another example here, winter parking rules. Those rules are there. They're not changing. We are simply informing our residents. Something that we did recently was make those a third of the sheet flyers so people can see those around town and better understand our parking rules. Our branding project, which you guys will hear more about tomorrow, that is an involved project. We want to work with them, hear what they're saying, and see and show you how those ideas were brought to life throughout the project. And then something that's been behind the scenes or maybe working a little bit smaller is the Downtown Muskegon Skate Park project, and that is a collaborate where we're looking for advice and innovation from our stakeholder groups who know a little bit more about skate park than we do. So you're probably like, Deborah, this is great, but how do we get to this point of using this spectrum? So this presentation was actually first made for our internal staff training when we went through with all of our department heads and anybody who was really public facing that would be needing the engagement spectrum. So I'm going to walk you guys through, I'm not going to go too in depth here, but the steps that are outlined for our staff members and how we begin the process and how we end the process of community engagement. So there are 8 main steps. You can see them here. I'll go into detail a little bit for you. So the first one is an annual assessment and planning of department engagement. So basically during the budget process, each department outlines anything that they're going to need for engagement, and they give me a heads up so I can help plan throughout the year so we don't have 32 engagement sessions in 1 month, because that would not be great. This is really a heads up thing, planning ahead, strategizing, making sure we're not wearing the public out with engagement opportunities. Step 2 is for that lead staff member of the project to gather their information and then submit the community engagement project form. In the appendices of the PDF that's in the packet, you can see the actual form and the questions that we're asking them. So basically they submit this form, it gives me the basics of what they're looking for, I review it, and then come up with a PDF 1-pager or 10-pager, depending on the process, and outline what we should do based on the spectrum and the basic goals that we have in the packet. There's a lot of things within that process. One of them is creating a timeline. One thing that we've been working on a lot within our internal staff is making sure that the process isn't compromised due to time constraints. So sometimes it's like, Deborah, we need to do this really, really fast. And I'm like, well, we can't. And we've been trying to make sure we have a 2-week notice period for all public events or engagements. Ideally, that's 30 days, and that does take a lot of backwards planning to make sure that we can get those things out in the correct amount of time in our newsletters or on social posts, on our website calendar, all of that. Of course, we make an external timeline, so we kind of work backward. When does that final decision need to be made, all the way up to when do we need to inform our internal stakeholders, including our commissioners and the public about the project. Like I said, the staff members create or fill out that form, and then I look at their suggested level of engagement and tell them if I agree or not, basically, because we want to make sure that we're asking our stakeholders the correct questions. So we just want to make sure that we're standing behind the level of engagement that we use. We want to ensure that our public actually have an impact on the project outcome, or what's the point of engaging with them. So we want to make sure we're being very intentional about that engagement. I think this one is just more summaries. So the next step, once we have the outline done and we have the engagement steps outlined, we then identify people. We want to make sure we have a wide variety of stakeholders that's very inclusive of people who are representative. This is internal stakeholders, external stakeholders, content experts, and context experts. And those are all outlined within the packet. But if you have specific questions, I'm happy to go through those. These are questions that I encourage staff to go through themselves when they're helping me list out those stakeholders is who will be impacted positively or negatively, who needs to know about this project, who can or will contribute to the conversation, who could stop this project, who might be hard to reach, and don't forget about our internal stakeholders. This is a direct quote from inside the packet and a very similar thing from IAP2. So the public and staff's time is a gift, and it's important to use it wisely, strategically, and without exhaustion. We don't want to tire out our residents and ask them similar questions over and over, or ask them questions that don't actually have an impact on projects that we're doing throughout the city. Step 5, like I said, when staff members fill out that project form, they give me a lot of information. Our communication side of things then reviews that information, makes sure it's digestible for the public, and puts every single thing we can find and think of on Connect Muskegon, so there's one place that people can go to gather that information. This can include any of these things up here: documents, memos, videos, photos, commission meeting links, city website pages for more information, historic data, and anything else that can come to our mind that's relevant for that project. The goal of Connect Muskegon is to basically be a one-stop shop for all things engagement projects, so residents don't have to go searching around for data on our website. It's all right there, and if they can't find it, there's a email or a phone number. Step 6 is to actually engage the community. So the plan that we come up with and that's on Connect Muskegon, we then follow through with. So in the appendices, again, there's many tools. There's toolkits about how we engage, whether we're sharing information, whether we're doing something to bring people together, or while we're collecting or compiling input. We have multiple different channels. I think if I went through all of those things, there'd be about 50 to 70 different action items that we could do. And obviously we don't do all of those for each project because that wouldn't make sense, but we use the best that we can to get the most input from our residents for each project. Then at the end of the process, we evaluate the feedback in the process. So we're looking at 2 different types of things. The first is to collect and evaluate the data we actually received from the public, put that to use. The second type of evaluation takes place once the project is totally done. So we're talking about what went really well, what didn't work, what could we have done differently, what went better than expected, and how can we improve for our next time. Step 8 is to follow through with the public. So everything that we've found at this point, or all the data that we've collected, everything that we've learned, we then put it back out there for the public to consume, and the impact that they've made or how their information has informed the decision, and push it back out through Connect Muskegon or the relevant channels that it was originally shared on. So if it was shared through social media, we push it back out through social media. If it was shared in an e-newsletter, we put it back out through the e-newsletter. We just want to make sure that we're very consistent across all of our communications so that that public actually know how their input was used. This is another quote that I think is important for everybody to see. When the public takes the time and effort to give us their feedback, we need to make sure we let them know how valuable they are and how much we appreciate their effort. Put in the time to let our community know that they've been heard. Here's the 8 steps again and a summary. And that's all I'm going to go over, so I'm here to answer questions or get feedback.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much for presenting your processes that you've developed internally. You've been with our organization as our first and only community engagement manager that we've had, and so it's been 18 months?
Yeah,
18
started
months, thereabouts?
right around Jonathan's time, so he might have a better count.
Yeah, so you've been doing phenomenal work in that role, and it's good for us to understand the process. It's nice to see this document that included in the packet as well with the public participation spectrum, and then just your planning steps that you use internally and how you and all the other departments are navigating that and creating standards of engagement and systemizing, standardizing the process. So great work. Really appreciate that. Questions, comments, commissioners?
Nobody?
All right. Commissioner
I was gonna
Cochin.
give somebody else a chance to go first. thank you so much, Miss Sweet, for doing all of this. I found that moving here to Muskegon, communication with the residents from the city was lacking before your position was created. And the year and a half or so that you've been here, you've been doing a great job of working on putting things together in collaboration with the city. I know that there's still some people who don't know about the newsletter, which is interesting because it's supposed to be getting mailed to everybody. But I have comments on Facebook regularly when I share the newsletter going, I didn't know that we had a newsletter. So it is good to make sure that we're continuing to, look at these things that we're working on and find new ways of, reaching out to people and letting them know what's happening. You're doing a great job with communicating with the residents. I don't think I've ever heard of a single complaint about you, speaking with the residents. That said, the big part of the reason why I ran was I wanted to see better communication with our residents. And there are some steps that I still think, that could do some tweaking, as I'm sure you're aware, because nothing's perfect, right?
Yeah.
I know that, sometimes step 2 can come out a little late. And step 4, where you were talking about the stakeholders, including the commissioners, there's times I find that I'm not aware of, meetings and things from the city, but I find out from the residents, and I'm really hoping we can work on changing that. And then, the social media was the other thing that I had gotten a comment on, to make sure that the people can find the meetings easily on our social media page. But you're doing a great job. Step 8, following through with the public, letting them know, this is where we got this information from, and showing them that we appreciate their input. That is huge. So thank you.
Awesome. I can tell you a couple of things that we've been working to improve on with your comments. The first thing is regarding to all public meetings or community engagement events or citywide events. We are putting all public meetings on our city calendar before the end of the month. So for the entire month, you could look at July 28th, and everything for August will be on the calendar. If it changes, it'll go out through a push notification. In addition to that, if you go to the City of Muskegon's website on the Contact Us form, there's the opportunity to sign up for multiple different variations of electronic newsletters. One of those is upcoming public meetings and events. So you'll get emailed I think it's Thursday evening at 5:30 p.m., the list of upcoming events for the following week, and that's good for any resident, and of course you guys as well. If you would like an additional email of events, we can do that very easily, so let me know, or how far in advance you want those. But the process, at least here, is to have a 2 weeks heads up for those things, and I know we try to link those in a lot of our, at least the monthly e-newsletter that goes out in addition to that website. But I will agree, it is hard, and it has become less of a challenge to gather input from our staff to try to get that shared with the public, and that's something that we continue to work on.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments at this time? No? All right. So I really like the emphasis and to the extent that we can incorporate this as we're moving forward with our policy decision making or initiative decision making and whatnot, what staff is recommending to the city commission or what we're adopting reflects that public feedback, that public input. So I know we're collecting it, we're doing a great job of that, but us emphasizing that more, and I think that will help reinforce, or maybe give, maybe not even reinforce, but give members of our public confidence that we earnestly want their feedback and that we are incorporating it. Because even though we're putting together, as you have demonstrated here, putting together processes and really taking the initiative, going above and beyond what we've had for many, many years to bolster our communication and improve that engagement, there's still a segment of our many residents who do not feel valued or do not feel that we really want to hear from them or that we act on what they say, that some people just think it's for show. And so as we approach this consistently and methodically and then demonstrate and emphasize and celebrate how what we hear from the community does inform the policy-making process and the decisions that are made at City Hall, whether decisions being made administratively or decisions being made by the elected policymakers. I think that consistency and celebration will give our public even greater confidence and further improve that in community engagement process. So just wanted to share those thoughts, and just say thank you. I really appreciate it was great work you're doing, and throughout all the departments, because the departments have stepped up their own community engagement and leaning on you to help facilitate that as well. And so I know you've been stretched thin.
We have a good team. They're really great. So everybody tries their best, and I think you hit the nail on the head. The more consistent we can be, the more consistency the residents will see, and the more confident they'll feel in us, which is good.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. All right. So, commissioners, we did not have a community relations committee meeting scheduled for after this, but there is a vacancy that I want to just consider for the planning commission. And talking with we were intentionally holding one of the spots for someone from the east side of the city. And in talking with the CRC chair and our vice mayor last week, we had not at that time had any applications from the east side. I did speak with someone and met with her today and discussed the planning commission, the roles and responsibilities, and see if she had any interest in serving on it. And so she did submit a application today. That is Lachey Simmons the second, who lives in Jackson Hill. What the clerk has presented here is the application package. So these are all the applicants that we have on file right now for the planning commission. These were some of these same names were presented back in January when we looked at this, but we were intentional in trying to find someone from the east side of the city to serve. So we have more geographic diversity, not to mention potential demographic diversity on the planning commission. And so, since you're just seeing this now, I don't know if you had an opportunity to review during the meeting. If not, I would say let's take a 5-minute break. We can do 10 minutes if you really need 10 minutes, but let's say, I'm going to ask you, would you rather have 10 minutes or 5 minutes? Like, do you think you can skim through this if you have not already, these documents?
I'm ready.
You're ready now?
I have not had a chance to
Okay.
through them. I haven't started, but
Are you good with 5 minutes? You want 10
I think
minutes?
I could probably. We settle on 7.
It's okay. Well, it probably ended up being 7. I'll say 5. It's probably ended up being 7. But okay, we're going to take a brief break to give you an opportunity to review these. If we make a decision tonight, it will go on the City Commission agenda for tomorrow for formal adoption. So we're going to take a brief intermission. Good evening. We are resuming our City of Muskegon work session. So, commissioners, before we had our intermission, I brought up that we are looking at making a recommendation. Making a recommendation to ourselves tomorrow to formally vote and adopt a new member to our City Planning Commission. So what's presented is the number of applicants that we have in our talent bank pool. We evaluated this back in January and made appointments or reappointments. And at that time, some of these names look familiar. They were in the packet or in the talent bank at that time. But we were intentional in looking for somebody from the east side of the city to serve on the Planning Commission. And so I'm going to open it up to discussion. I did speak with Lachey today, and she's quickly submitted her application online for our consideration. So with that said, I'll open it up to any discussion that there may be or questions.
Question there, Mayor.
Yes, Commissioner
Yeah.
German.
We have some qualified applicants here. Just going back in my earlier years as a volunteer for the city of Muskegon, it was always on a first come, first served basis. I think, to the fact where we go out and look for people, we advertise it. But when you have applicants that had already applied and you have opportunity to pick from that pool, I think is somewhat discretionary for me, as when we talk about the integrity of how we want to select individuals. When you have that opportunity to pick from that pool, but then you wait until you intentionally go out and get somebody else or have somebody else apply, it just shows a level of, I don't want to say nepotism or anything like that, but that there is just, to me, is just not fair. I should say, Now, that we have this pool, and I understand what you're saying due to the representation. And want to have it somewhat diverse and serving from other areas, but we have to look at the general scope of things when you have applicants in a pool. And this is just coming back from when I also served as the chairperson for the community relations, also as a young volunteer. So I think we should be mindful how we approach this when we do these things. And we have applicants that's already submitted their application in good faith, looking to be part of whatever committee that the city has. So.
Thank you, Commissioner German. I would share that it is not on a first come, first served basis that we make appointments, that we collect applications throughout the year into a talent bank, and when there are vacancies, we consider what's in the talent bank. We did that at our normal process at the beginning of the year. At that time, we acted with intentionality and mindfulness about the importance of representation and wanting to have a broadly diverse planning commission. And that's why we collectively decided not to appoint another white man from the west side on the planning commission, and wanting to open it up and being intentional and trying to find people to broadly diversify the planning commission.
And that's why I said I could see the need there.
Yeah.
But I know that has not always been the process. That's what I'm stating.
Yeah.
I know the intent. Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner German. Yes, Commissioner Cochin.
Sorry. I definitely understand Commissioner German's concerns. I think the verbiage used and the way it presented made it seem like we went out and found somebody specifically for this position and told them they had to apply. But I would hope that's not the case. We've been intentionally trying to find more diversity as far as the geographical representation of our city to be on the planning commission. And I think that's a big part of the reason why we had made the choices we did back in January. That being said, I don't think that just means we have to automatically just say, yep, nope, she's in. I think that we need to review the talent pool and kind of make sure that we're making, the appropriate choices given the talent pool that we have currently.
And that's why all the applicants that have indicated interest serving the planning commission is presented right now, not just the one person who I spoke to most recently. The reason I reached out to her is because we were holding that position open and waiting for applicants and had not received anyone. And when I learned that she was a resident in Jackson Hill, and I was like, she, I'll just share. She'd be my preference from these members in here to be appointed to the Planning Commission. Obviously, I thought that she could serve well on there. That's why I reached out to her to talk to her. I didn't say she had to apply. I discussed with her the Planning Commission and what it does, what it entails, what the responsibilities are, time obligations, and whatnot. And she was interested and had a willingness to serve in this capacity. And so she brings a different perspective to the Planning Commission. With her lived experiences, being from Muskegon, growing up here, having gone elsewhere, pursued her education, being very active in our community, even while living elsewhere, organizing events such as the Black Business Expo and seminar and other activities in our community. And if she were to be appointed, we would have, for the first time in our city's history, a women majority planning commission, similar to what we have right now for the first time in our history, a women majority city commission. And also, I think that we would have, similarly to our city commission, the most number of African Americans on our city commission at one time. We would have the most number of African Americans on our planning commission at one time in our city's history with this appointment. So there are a number of reasons why I think it's important to have this representation on the planning commission. Commissioner Kilgo.
Thank you. Just so I understand this packet correctly, that Ms. Jackson is ineligible, so the rest of them are eligible.
Potentially, I looked up Mr. Hickman. He's not registered to vote, so I can't ascertain because it looks like he's employed in a number of different places and
He's employed as one of the principals at the Muskegon Heights Charter Academy. He lives on 5th Street, right north of Southern Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
So he's a Muskegon city resident.
Mm-hmm.
If qualified, when the clerk or whoever does their search, I lean towards Dr. Hickman. His qualifications are impeccable.
Yeah.
I know Dr. Hickman. I've met Dr. Hickman. He's doing a very good job in his work role at the Muskegon Heights Charter Academy High School. So from these, and I know Miss Simmons and have nothing. I love Miss Simmons. She's great. But looking at the qualifications, my recommendation would be for Dr. Hickman.
Yeah, he definitely has an impressive educational background, without a doubt. My only reservation with him is the newness to it. Not that it's a drawback, but like not being well immersed, deeply immersed in our community yet. Certainly he has an opportunity to in his current role to do so, but being a relative newcomer without roots in our community. Not that that's a disqualifier, but it's just a factor in my mind for consideration. Yeah. Commissioner Cochin.
Yeah, to that comment that you were making, and Commissioner Kilgo was making, I feel personally like the experience of Dr. Hickman being from other areas actually to be a benefit, because having lived other places, having seen other places, having seen the way other things are done, can provide diversity as well in ideas, and I do appreciate that. I also really appreciate Miss Simmons' work. I believe she was the one who organized and founded the Black Wall Street, if I'm correct. Yes. Yeah, and I think that that's something that's really important to our community as well. I think she does a good job of doing things, for the community. and I know that she's very active in the community. But yeah, I definitely going through Dr. Hickman's resume. I was pretty blown away, and hearing that Commissioner Kilgo, knows that he lives here, and does work here, and is not just, working here. That definitely gives me a little bit more insight into who he is. He's a consultant for the Boys and Girls Club down in Missouri as well, and I think that would be beneficial.
Thank you, Commissioner Cochin. Vice Mayor St. Clair.
I look up every candidate on the internet when they come in, and I strongly encourage you to please look up Mr. Hickman. Sometimes it's Van Hickman, sometimes it's Hickman. There is a lot of information out there that is deeply concerning to me. It's pretty well documented list of things that I would be deeply concerned about going forward with this individual, given what he has been reported of being involved with historically. Like I said, it took me a very brief Google search to turn up a lot of things that were very, very concerning to me about putting this individual in any position of power without some significant reassurance outside of what I saw online. So.
Question, Mayor.
Yes, Commissioner German.
Yeah, to Vice Mayor St. Clair's comment about Dr. Hickman. Would you like to disclose some of the things that you're talking about? I mean, has this guy been to prison, or has he killed anybody? Or, I mean, we all have a past or done something, whether it's ran a red light or threw a rock. I mean, we're talking about serving on a planning commission. The guy is definitely qualified. Well, more than qualified, if you ask me, then not to take nothing from the other candidates. And I know who Miss Simmons is, and I know her mother. She's a councilwoman for the city of Muskegon Heights, very good family. I think this guy definitely brings worth, I should say, to any public service office. With his knowledge, I'm looking at a bachelor's in arts and psychology, a master's in education. You're talking about a doctor's degree in leadership. We're talking about serving, and if a man can work in that capacity to serve, and regardless of what background we have, as long as it's not anything that's damaging to the public or anyone, I think that's irrelevant. But we all does it. I mean, unless you can disclose something that we don't know about.
Would you like me to read a newspaper article to you? Would that be helpful?
Yes, but again, if someone's done something and paid a price for it, they paid that price. You can send it to me, yes. But I guess my question would be, can you serve in the capacity and do the job? And are you qualified? Again, I've served in that position as a community relations chair, and we've had several volunteers that signed up for office that had backgrounds that wasn't stellar. People change, but if it's something that would be detrimental to the community or put a bad image on the city of Muskegon, I could see. But yeah, I'd like to see it.
Director Ercolm, I see you have something to add or share with us.
Good evening. I didn't want to muddy the waters or anything. I don't know how many applicants you're considering this evening. I did want to mention that we have one vacancy, but the planning director has received feedback from at least one sitting member, potentially more than one, that they'll likely be done this calendar year, just for personal reasons, other stuff going on.
Relocating.
Yeah, and so I just
We have
wanted
an
to
opportunity to make multiple appointments this year.
yeah,
Is what you're getting
I
at.
wanted to add that piece of context. It may not be an either or.
Yeah.
But
No,
I
that's good context.
just wanted to let you guys know that I was just
And
communicating
that should
with
be
him. And he,
relatively soon-ish.
That was
Last
our
I heard, it was gonna
understanding.
be over the summer.
yeah, they
that
they
this
haven't
member
given
would
us
be.
an update in a while, but have given us a heads up over the last several months that it would likely be mid-year. And we're kind of mid-year right now, so we'll follow up with that individual. But I did want to at least give you some context as you kind of weigh this decision. So, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Director Echolm. Appreciate that. Commissioner Gorman.
Thank you. I just wanted to offer, however you all come to your decision making on board appointments is what you were elected to do. My bar is not as low as did they commit a crime. However, I just want to stress to the newer commissions that the Planning Commission is, I believe, probably one of the most important boards aside from this board you're sitting on right now. So I take the weight of the recommendation from our very, very seriously for candidates, and so I am fully prepared to support Lachey Simmons' appointment to Planning Commission. That's all.
Thank you, Commissioner Gorman. Any other thoughts or questions before we get into how we might proceed? Commissioner Kilgo.
Yeah, so right now, minus one of our commissioners, we will pick one of these people and then vote on them tomorrow.
So typically what happens is that we have a community relations committee meeting after our work sessions, and the CRC is a committee of the whole, and the CRC is responsible for reviewing any of the applicants in our talent bank to make appointments to the various different commissions, boards, and committees that exist. We do that at the beginning of the year for because that's when terms expire. We make renewals or new people appointed, and throughout the year we make appointments as vacancies arise. In this case, it was too late to have the CRC meeting after our work session, and so we're just tacking it on to our work session. And that's why we're discussing it right now. But normally we would not discuss this at our work session. This would be a CRC committee item, and then the CRC would evaluate it and make a recommendation to the City Commission, and then the City Commission at the general session would formally make the appointments.
For sure. So the last thing I'll say, because there are multiple candidates on this list that I would support, is as far as Dr. Hickman, like I said, I acknowledge I know Dr. Hickman. I sold Dr. Hickman his house, so I know that Dr. Hickman lives here in the city of Muskegon. Exceptional gentleman, and I don't think that he would be the director of student services at a high school here in West Michigan if he was some sort of something. So I know that not everyone knows him, and I know this is being someone who was not born and raised in Muskegon. This sometimes is a, where are you from, or you're not from here type of thing. Exceptional gentleman. I think he would serve wonderfully on the Planning Commission. I also, support Miss Simmons. She's a brilliant business mind, has a heart for this city and this community and would love to see the community grow. So I'm in favor of either one. And because Director Elcombe said that there may be another vacancy that we see this year, maybe there will be time for other commissioners to dig in deeper for some of these candidates that are on the paper. Because it doesn't really give us much time, 5 minutes or 10 minutes, to really dig into some of who these people are. Sometimes we may want to ask constituents of our own or friends or family, or I could go to, I know some parents who send their children to the high school and stuff, and I've heard such great things about what he's doing there, but not everybody's heard those things. So I understand. So I am glad, I guess, to hear that we'll maybe have another opportunity to appoint someone to the Planning Commission.
Thank you. I appreciate you sharing that, and also vouching for this person that you know him personally. I'm not aware of him. Looks like a newcomer. Definitely has a strong educational background. Looking him up, I didn't see him registered at that address. He does own it. Look that up, and you just confirmed that he does own it. But he's not registered to vote at that address, which just gave me a little bit of pause. But I do not think he's automatically disqualified from serving. But like you said, I would welcome more time to consider him.
Yeah.
As the we didn't have anyone from the east side, so I was looking for someone on the east side for this particular vacancy. But he's certainly someone that I would give more review, due diligence, and consideration of with any future vacancies.
Thank you.
One question.
Yes, Commissioner German.
For Commissioner Kilgore, what is his ethnicity?
He's an African American male.
Okay, that would definitely diversify that planning commission because we have African American, a black female, and to have a black male on it. When we talk about diversity, equity, and gender, I am in favor of recommending Dr. Phil Williams Van Hickman. That would be my recommendation. Even though again, Ms. Lachey Simmons, what she does in the community, I think with the experience in the community and the work that this gentleman has done, looking at his resume, I think he would be more in the favor of an employee than the resume of Ms. Simmons at this point in time. Not saying that she's not qualified or anything to serve, but I think experience speaks for itself. I mean, you can't teach it, you can't buy it, and the work that he's done and the willingness to serve just says, hey, he's done the work and he wants to continue to do work. So I make a motion to appoint Dr. Phil Williams Van Hickman for the Planning Commission. If I can get a second.
We're not making the. That's tomorrow night.
Okay,
is when we are making the formal decisions on who to appoint. A motion could be to recommend to the City Commission an appointment, but we're not making any appointments at this time.
Even a recommendation for tonight. We can't make a recommendation.
A motion to recommend.
That's what I'm doing.
Well, that you need to phrase it that way.
Okay. Well, I'm recommending that Dr. Phil Williams Van Hickman be recommended to serve on the City of Muskegon Planning Commission.
Support.
All right, we have a motion on the floor to recommend to the City Commission the appointment of Philip. Well, there's Philip Hickman here, but his full name is
depending on where you look.
Dr. Phil William Van Hickman is the name on his resume, to the City of Muskegon's Planning Commission. So we can have discussion of this motion before we vote on the recommendation. I would just say that I am not in a position to. I'm more comfortable with the appointment of Ms. Simmons at this time versus Dr. Hickman at this time. Not to say that I would not support his future consideration or appointment, but at this time, personally, I'd prefer Ms. Simmons. And looking at his resume, I have seen a lot of jumping around, short stints here and there. So I'm just, although he has bought a house that could reflect an intent for longevity here, because there's a process, there's a learning curve with the Planning Commission. So I'd hate to see someone get appointed and then gone in short form. So that's something that I would prefer to have reach out to him and just have a conversation, understand what his future outlook might be.
Yeah, okay, looking earlier today, the presentation from management, that they talked about diversity, equity, inclusion, what the city's vision is, what we're trying to implement here. And this is a prime example to implement some diversity on that planning commission, like we have here on the city commission. The opportunities there, and I have issues at times with some of the votes and the decisions that the cities made when they had the opportunity to really diversify city staff here.
Okay, we're getting off subject now.
No. I'm just no. But this is a segue going to where what I'm
I
getting
know, so
into.
we got to stay focused on the motion, though. Is what I'm
But
saying.
the thing is, reason I voted because the history, recommended Dr. Phil Williams Hickman is it's impressive resume that says a lot. Willingness to serve, and it diversifies that planning commission gender-wise, and having a African American male on that commission. So that's my reasoning for making that recommendation, and I think it would be a good gesture for the commission to support that, even though we know Ms. Lachey Simmons, and as Mr. Director Eckham stated, there'll be other opportunities, and if we can get 2 African American females on that, that'll be great. But here we have an opportunity to appoint a black male on that commission also.
Commissioner Gorman.
Thank you. I just want to be crystal clear and transparent to my commissioners of I am unable to support a candidate that has been released from a previous position for using funds for personal use. So that is why I cannot support this person and their appointment to the Planning Commission.
Thank you, Commissioner Gorman.
Question, Mayor. Well, excuse me, Commissioner Gorman, what was that reason why you couldn't support?
Based on the research and information we have been provided about this candidate, I cannot support their appointment to the Planning Commission.
Oh, I thought maybe there was something you wanted to disclose, or you had facts, and that's why I asked Vice Mayor St. Clair, to provide or disclose any type of facts that you're making these allegations or backgrounds issues. Just enlighten the commission what it is you're talking about.
Vice Mayor St. Clair.
Thank you. Again, I spent a very brief amount of time doing some research. I have shared the article with you at your request. It is in your email. There are some very concerning allegations that this individual has been charged with. And I think that it would be highly irresponsible to move forward full speed ahead to appoint him tomorrow when you just heard his name today. Because
I can't even pull up my email. Okay. It won't connect now.
the whole point of this process has been to diversify the Planning Commission. And I don't know if perhaps everyone was not here for the meeting back in January when we were talking about this. Actually, we've talked about this at every CRC meeting since January, of the need to diversify the Planning Commission. So I do take offense at the idea that that is not our goal. That is explicitly our goal. And I have asked my fellow commissioners every month, please see your constituents on the east side, because we are very deliberately looking to diversify the Planning Commission, particularly with someone on the east side and particularly with a person of color. However, I have done the research and have some very grave concerns, and I think it would be irresponsible to move forward on this without doing some more research. So I cannot support this, and highly encourage you all to take a little bit of time and look into this candidate. He has a variety of names, so Google a few different ways.
Thank you, Vice Mayor St. Clair. Commissioner Kilgo?
Yes. I would like to get a candidate that is going to be approved with flying colors by the commission right now. I have a feeling that that will be Miss Simmons, and I fully support, like I said from the beginning, I know Miss Simmons, and I think that she would be great at this. So if I can rescind my second and make a motion to nominate Lachey Simmons, I would like to do that.
You may do so.
Okay. So I rescind my second of Dr. Hickman at this time, and I would like to make a motion to appoint Lachey Simmons to
Recommend.
recommend Lachey Simmons to the Planning Commission. And then I would be happy to have a conversation with Dr. Hickman, have him come in and meet people and come to community events and let more people in the community know him.
Okay.
You know, but if we're going to make a vote and, you know, it's yes, no, right now, then we might as well look at a candidate that we all kind of.
I agree. My impression is that there's a more broad support and consensus around the appointment of Ms. Simmons and potential future consideration of the other members. So we do have a motion. Is there support for that motion?
I would support that motion.
All right. We have a motion by Commissioner Kilgo, supported by Commissioner Cochin, to recommend to the City Commission the appointment of Lachey Simmons II to the City Planning Commission. Commissioner Cochin, I saw that you had something to.
Oh yeah, I just
add.
wanted to kind of echo some of your sentiment and some of Commissioner Kilgo's sentiment after doing some Google searching, because it is hard to find out, you know, about who we're putting on this board, and this board is very important, which is why we left one of the seats open. And I do have some concerns given the Google search. I mean, you can Google search me, and you're gonna find some interviews from WZZM and me at 4 years old at a pumpkin patch, but you're not gonna find the things I just found. And that to me is concerning.
Thank you, Commissioner Cochin. All right. Unless there's any further, Commissioner German.
Yeah. Like I said before, with this candidate that we talked about, Dr. Hickman. Again, if you dig into the background of other people, I'm quite sure all of us have done something. This here, not knowing what he had done, is concerning. I would say, I definitely agree, and thanks for Vice Mayor bringing that to our attention. I look at the qualifications, and people have done things before, and as to that has not been in the best faith of serving with integrity, I should say. So, to Commissioner Kilgo's statement, it would be good to have a vote pretty much unanimously to have a planning commissioner serve on that commission without, I guess, a good word, baggage, you know. But again, we all have some type of baggage, you know, so we're not exempt from that. So I'm not singling this guy out. Looking at his qualifications and his credentials, that's what I was looking at. And then diversifying that commission with an African-American male, and we have a black African-American female. So if that's the direction the commission wants to go in, and Commissioner Kilgo rescinded his motion, I could support that as well. Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner
Yep.
German. So then nothing else, we're going to go to roll call. Roll call, please.
Commissioner German,
Yes.
Commissioner Gorman,
Yes.
Commissioner Cochin,
Yes.
Vice Mayor St. Clair,
Yes.
Mayor Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Kilgo.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you. So this will be added to our consent agenda tomorrow for formal adoption. All right. All right, now we're going to go to public comment. We've got a number of forms here. First, we have Kevin Hussey joining us from the Steele neighborhood. Welcome, sir. You have up to 3 minutes to provide your remarks.
Oh, my name's Kevin Hussey. Just here in support of a friend of mine who owns a building over in Houston. Joseph Heron I worked with for many years. We do a lot of social activism. We feed a lot of people. Currently, we have an urban farm in Muskegon Heights where we're trying to make up the loss of Plum's grocery store, the food desert. So we're trying to provide access to healthy foods to our community. Recently, we had a community cookout and giveaway right on Houston, and we look forward to working out of that building in the near future. So if you see us down there, stop by, say hi, but like I said, just here to support my friend.
Thank you, Mr. Hussey. Next up, we have Randy Vander White joining us from the McLaughlin neighborhood.
Good evening. Yes, I serve as president for the McLaughlin Neighborhood Association, and am here to say thank you to all of you for the vote that was made previously about opening up ARPA dollars to the various neighborhood associations. Officially last week, Wednesday, we completed the expansion that was proposed with the use of the ARPA funds. So I want to encourage you, if you have a chance, to stop by the McLaughlin Community Park to see the swing set that has been added, the inclusive seesaw, the Thrive 450, as well as the rubberized pour-in-place surfacing. So that is, accessible for those who may be in a wheelchair or using walkers or whatever. So yes, so thank you again for voting for that. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Hannah Hilborn joining us from the city of Muskegon Heights. Welcome. You have up to 3 minutes to provide your remarks.
Thank you. My name is Hannah Hilborn, and I'm here today also to support my friend Joey regarding 238 Houston. I understand that we have a little bit more time now, so for the first time in a very long time, thank you. And just kind of wanted to reiterate too, they're really working hard to make up for the fact that pretty much the entire city of Muskegon and Heights is a food desert. I kind of joined in on it because I've written grants and stuff like that for food deserts and to support the community here, and it's something that's very near and dear to my heart, and I'm just really excited that there are people out here to work with who are doing something like that. We did have a giveaway on Sunday, and we fed probably 75 to 100 people just on the fly. Plan to keep on doing that. So this Sunday at 3 o'clock, there will be another one, and without the quorum issue. If anybody wants to stop by, that'd be awesome. But just thanks, and hopefully we can work together a little bit. But we really want to show you guys what it can be. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hilborn. Next up, we have Douglas Snyder joining us from the city of Lansing by way of 238 Houston. But welcome, sir. You have up to 3 minutes to provide your remarks.
Thank you for having me here. Appreciate all you guys and gals. So the supervisory process, is meant to encourage progress on buildings that are dilapidated or dangerous, considered dangerous. It's that process, that's why we actually passed out packets to you guys, so that you could see what we have been doing in black and white. I also, Ms. Clerk, thank you for the exterior of the building, plus everything inside. If you looked at those, you'll see that everything is brand new. We have completed a ton of work. We're going as quickly and as safely as we possibly can. And I know the council wants more housing in Muskegon. That's something that we're addressing. We are adding housing with this building. Additionally, with the food desert issue in Muskegon, we're now talking with partners about potentially bringing into that commercial space that's on the main floor. So we're trying to address and work with the city and try to meet the needs while we're doing this. So we're kind of trying to pivot towards that and see if that's something we could look at. And interestingly enough, this building in the 20s, 30s, and 40s was a grocery store. So it's got that historical significance, I guess you'd say. That's all I really have to say. Special thanks to Commissioner Kilgo. He's been really helpful with this process. Everyone that I've spoken to has been really helpful in trying to get this moving along. So as always, if you guys have any questions, I think my information's out there. I've sent emails to pretty much most of you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Snyder. Next up, we have Joseph Heron joining us from the city of Muskegon Heights by way of 238 Houston.
Hi, my name is Joseph Heron. I'm here today to just talk a little bit about the building. I gave you guys all packets to go over, and these were just a few of the highlighted issues and hurdles that we've had to overcome. And I just wanted you guys to be aware of that, so that way you guys had all the correct information of what's been going on in the building with the process that we've been trying to move forward. But with that being said, if there's any questions for us, we'd gladly answer them. And I'm just thankful to work with the city to try to continue this project and get it moving forward and work together to get Muskegon moving forward. And let's watch it go. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Heron. Next up, we have Larry Williams joining us from the city of Muskegon Heights. Welcome. You have 3 minutes to provide your remarks.
Thank you. I came to speak on behalf of 238 Houston as well. I am business partners with Mr. Heron. We're doing the urban farm in Muskegon Heights, and we are currently in early talks with members of city administration at looking at some to try and implement what we're doing in the Heights here in the city, as well as the potential for a grocery store. We'd like to invite any members of the commission out to see our flagship site in Muskegon Heights. It's at 2639 6th Street, across from the Lewis McMurray Transportation Center. And we would look forward to being able to work with the city and expand our footprint and goal for more social equity and access to healthy food options. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Williams. All right, that's all the forms I have for public comment. Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to give public comment at this time? Otherwise, we're going to go to the phones. Phone-in comments are 231-724-6721. When you call in, please turn down any audio that you may have in the background. And when we answer the phone, you'll be asked to provide your name and which neighborhood you might be calling from if you're a city resident. And if you're not a city resident, what other city, township, or village you might be calling from. We'll give that a few moments. Again, that phone number is 231-724-6721. All right, no callers?
No, Mayor.
All right, Commissioners, I entertain a motion to adjourn. All right, motion by Commissioner Kilgore, supported by Vice Mayor St. Clair. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. We are adjourned. Thank you. Take care. Be well.
Good night.